3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. We're going to invest it in property, and the strongest property we can buy is Bitcoin. So my general advice to anybody would be, don't try to time the market. I don't think anybody can time the market. The basis of the S&P index and the rational market theory and John Bogle said, it's a good idea. It's kind of like investing in steel or automobiles or electricity or oil in the first decade. All of those things were highly volatile. People went bankrupt.
Increased during the past years. But do you think that for Bitcoin, in order to be a more independent digital asset class, such dependency would be diminishes in near future? What is your prediction?
I think the Bitcoin at times is uncorrelated to risk assets, and then sometimes it's correlated to risk assets. And I think in the last 12 months, the entire world has been in turmoil, and we're in the biggest financial crisis and investment crisis of 50 years right now. So it's kind of difficult to divine things on a short-term basis. I'm a fundamental investor. I look at the fundamentals. The fundamentals are, there's never more than 21 million Bitcoin. The Bitcoin network is something like 100x to 1,000x more secure than the next best thing. It's unique, it's dominant, it solves a problem for 8 billion people. You can build it into 50 billion computers, right? You would panic sell it at the wrong time, you'd never buy back in, and you would get wiped out of your position. So generally the best strategies that make families rich over 100 years are they simply own the entire middle of town, or they own all the desirable real estate. Take a cue from the royal families in the UK or from the royal families in the Middle East. They own all the highly said this, and Warren Buffett said this, and many investors have said this. It's all about time in the market, not timing the market. 1% of the days are going to result in 80 to 90% of the return. In some cases, 2% of the days are 100% of the return. So if you're not in the market on 6 days out of the year, maybe you don't get a return. So I don't know which days it'll move, but you could imagine, if a Middle Eastern nation said, we just decided to buy $10 billion of Bitcoin and we're going to buy $10 billion more Bitcoin every year, the price of Bitcoin would double or triple or quadruple, and you would be waiting to trade that. You can't trade that. Is it going to happen? Sure, it's going to happen. When? I don't know. So if you have an allocation to digital property, then my answer is I just buy Bitcoin with whatever cash I have available. And if you're expecting to need the money in less than 4 years, you probably shouldn't buy it. If you're going to hold it more than 4 years, you're going to hold it forever. You're just buying and holding. There's no reason to think about trading it. So I'm not really a trader. I think that 95% of the people that trade, they generally lose. It's a losing strategy. If I look at all of the most successful investors and the wealthiest people in the world, the characteristic of nearly all of them that I know is they have extremely large, long-term positions or long leverage positions in property or corporations that they hold for a decade or longer. Like Jeff Bezos held Amazon stock through 5 drawdowns of 80% or more, and after 2000, Amazon was down 95%. And he never traded it, and that's how he got to be the richest guy in the world. And Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer got to be the richest people in the world by holding. And so I think the smartest thing you can do is just buy and hold for the long term. And if you want to diversify, you diversify across property. So buy some scarce, desirable property that a person that's more intelligent than you and more affluent than you will want to buy from you in a decade. Ask yourself the question, what will an extremely rich, well-educated person want to buy that I own in the year 2032? And own that. And so that means maybe sports teams, rare art, beachfront property in Saint-Tropez or the Hamptons or something. You can't just hold dollars in an Argentine bank. The government will eventually convert your dollars back into pesos and devalue the peso. So Bitcoin is hope for anybody in the world if they have any kind of job where they're not a monopoly. And even if they are a monopoly, if you're a manufacturing monopoly, your costs are going up and your energy cost is going up, so you're kind of stuck. So the digital monopolies that basically create software and sell it to everybody on Earth and nobody has a choice, there's a 50-50 chance they'll be able to keep up with this. But I suspect that everybody in the audience is not Apple, Google, or Microsoft. Everybody in the audience probably is more like MicroStrategy. You're probably hardworking and talented at something you do. You have a salary or revenues. They're not growing at 20% a year, right? They have to be growing at 100% a year in Turkish lira for you to be keeping up with the purchasing power of the US dollar. That's probably not happening. So Bitcoin is hope. It makes me cheerful and constructive. It's cheerful because there's something you can do. Constructive because there's something you can do. You can build a business and build it into Lightning. You can put Lightning into your product. You can build your balance sheet on Bitcoin. You can advocate Bitcoin. You can educate the world on Bitcoin. You can help people figure out how to safely custody Bitcoin. You can educate your regulators, your lawmakers. You can write books about it, right? You can make it better, right? Every single product in the economy could be made better with Bitcoin. You can build it into your product, you can build it into your service, you can create a Bitcoin derivative. MicroStrategy, since August 11th, bought $4 billion worth of Bitcoin. So, cheerful and constructive? Yeah, we got a plan. What are we gonna do? We're gonna raise money, we're gonna buy Bitcoin, we're gonna tell the entire world we did it, we're gonna answer everybody's questions about how they can do it, and then we're going to work with lawmakers and regulators to improve the regulations, to improve the accounting, to explain the technique and the execution. And presumably there are a lot of other people in the world with a similar problem that we have that will do it with us. And so we have a plan, and I think we've got a great team, and that's really good for morale. That's why I think Bitcoin is, it makes me cheerful and constructive.
Thank you for that. I think we've ended the discussion here. We're going to open up the floor to some questions. So if there's going to be a microphone.
Bonds are down 15%. The NASDAQ is up 8%. The S&P is up 18%. Bitcoin is up 80%. And MicroStrategy stock is up 101%. So it's pretty clear all the assets aren't working as stores of value in our current environment. But more to the point, if you hold gold for 100 years, gold miners are going to print more gold, 2% more gold a year. So that means the half-life of gold is at best 35 years, which means your gold's going to be cut in half 3 times over 100 years. So if you started with $1 million worth of gold and you just wait, you're going to have $500,000, then $250,000, and then $125,000. You're just losing all of your value because the gold miners keep diluting the gold supply. And the second order effect is gold gets centralized and it's corrupted. So gold is being inflated, corrupted by rehypothecation and being sold short by bankers, and it's being confiscated. So statistically, over 100 years, you got to assume that gold maybe will hold 10% of your value. Bitcoin, on the other hand, it doesn't have the same counterparty risk, it doesn't have the same confiscation risk, and it can't be inflated away. So Bitcoin, just on that basis, is 10 times better, harder money than gold. And gold, as you can see, is much harder money than silver. The other reason that Bitcoin's better, though, is because you can move a block of Bitcoin at the speed of light. If you have $1 billion of gold weighs 30,000 pounds, it takes 6 months to move and $5 million to move it between New York and Tokyo. $1 billion of Bitcoin could be moved for about a quarter, maybe $1 in a couple of minutes. And that's on the base layer. And if you start to move it on layer 2s and layer 3s, you know, you could break it into 1 million pieces, move it, you know, 1,000 times a second, and then recompose it again. So the velocity of Bitcoin is thousands, if not millions of times higher than the velocity of gold. The programmability is higher. So if you look at it, you would say, well, Bitcoin's clearly better than gold by far in every respect. And if gold's worth 10 trillion, Bitcoin must be worth 20, 30, 40 trillion. But you can't really stop there because digital gold is still a limited idea. Bitcoin is really better thought of as digital property. It's like if you're gonna buy a second home to Airbnb